Well, welcome and good day, everyone. We, of course, are glad you guys can join us again for another great Talk It Over in our message series, The Power to Change, which last week was quite good. I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't had a chance. You can go to our YouTube channel at LifeNorth.Church and get caught up on it. And, of course, watch previous episodes as well of different series and just try to dive into more of what God has for you. But before we get into that, welcome, Michaela.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Good to have you back again.
Glad to be here.
So how has things been going in last week or so? Anything new and exciting, or just fairly kind of on the steady path?
I guess something exciting. So I just started a new role at the beginning of January in the same organization that I was at. And so I recorded a video just to introduce myself to the donors and supporters that I'm directly working with. And so over this past week, we've just been planning for that introduction, what we call like a touch point or like a newsletter that I'll be sending out.
Yep.
So just talking with my colleagues, getting that all ready. So I'm really excited for people to just get to know me a little bit more, my journey at Compassion Canada, and just also a little bit about my personal life. So yeah, my husband helped me to record that video, and I was able to design a newsletter. So I'm excited, maybe a little nervous too, as I put myself out there, but I'm thankful for this opportunity.
Yeah, it is exciting. Yeah, and always those new opportunities, new directions and things you're trying, of course can be, making you a little bit nervous. It's stepping into something different, right? It's all part of, as we grow further in that, those things tend to push us a little bit, and can be certainly making you a little nervous and even excited though. Sometimes you get those excitement of something new, which is always great.
Yeah, how has your week been?
It's been pretty good. The little guy's been a little bit off. He's had a little bit of an upset stomach for the past week now, so we've been addressing some food things and trying to cut out some stuff and kind of reset his tummy, so he's getting ready to start solid food again and see if he can tolerate that and go from there. It seems he's picked up some kind of virus, which of course at school is, I think, extremely common for most kids, as they tend to pass things around quite frequently. But we did our breaking kind of our fast for the month. Went to Mandarin, which of course was really good. Of course, ate way too much. I felt that
you kinda have to, right?
Yeah, I know. I was feeling it for the rest of the evening. I was like, wow, I shouldn't have eaten so much. But there's so many fun things to try, and you kind of want to try everything. So it's like, I'll try little bits of everything, and I did that, but it still turned out to be just too much.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's okay once in a while.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was lots of fun. We had laughs, and certainly a good way to break that fast so we can go and enjoy, of course, a meal together. So that, of course, was a lot of fun. The weather, of course, has shifted. It's gotten a lot colder.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So my work is a little different. I'm getting quite wet with things at the moment as I work on vehicles.
No.
So things dripping down the back of your neck, really cold water. It's that, or you get a little bit of salt in the eye from the slush dripping off stuff. It's not as nice as it could be. It's kind of the less glamorous side of my job, but otherwise, been pretty good.
Yeah,
so,
changes things up, but I
it does
just a bit.
It does. It unfortunately does, but that's all part of the changing seasons here in Canada. So we just have to move with them and continue to strive forward.
Yeah, I can't wait for summer. Honestly.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. The days are getting a little bit brighter in the morning. I'm not leaving in the dark and coming home in the dark, so I know it's getting closer. We're getting closer to that spring, which is always an exciting time.
Yeah.
So, Power to Change, continuing, of course, in the series, guys. It's been good last week. We talked about the why last week. This week is about the who, and it's, stop the negative self-talk, and that's our title for today. Craig, of course, did a great job unpacking this message again. He's been doing such a good job with these messages lately. I found him more impactful over the past month with the messages he's been doing. Been really, really good.
Good way to start the year.
It is. And I don't know, something about just the start of the year. He brings a lot of energy, which has always been excellent to start the year off.
Yeah.
So why do we do what we do? And then we talk about the who, and this is part of that, right? He gave us a couple points. You feel obligated to do what you do. You want to do what you do. You want to be accepted. And I think that's a pretty common theme for a lot of us, where we're trying to fit in, trying to, mix in with a group of people that maybe, don't have the same values, but we tend to stray off that path to try for acceptance, try to doing what we want to do and maybe not what God's calling us to do.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a bit of a directional change for us at times. And certainly I think it's a lot of way of us see it. So Craig brought, which I thought was really good, you do what you do because of what you think of you. That's a tongue twister.
That's tricky to say.
That's a tongue twister. So I like how you kind of just brought that in, that, we're going to do what we do because of what we think of ourselves. And if we have a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of thoughts of we're not good enough, we're not, capable, that can really change how we actually interact with people, relationships, even at work, how that all factors in. If we don't think we're good enough at our job or we're capable, it can really bring in a negative feeling, and you just tend to not want to do as much or be as engaged maybe. I think it's a big way he started this. Some other thoughts Craig had was, what type of person am I? So getting us thinking of, who am I? Who is you, I guess.
Yeah.
What kind of situation is this? So is this something that's maybe in your control, out of your control? Is it an emotional situation? And what does that look like? Is this going to affect you one way or the other? Is it an emotional, a physical? And what does that look like? What does someone like me do in a situation like that? So how do you respond? How do you act in response to what's going on around you?
Yeah.
Sometimes I know for me, I tend to shut down. I just shut off when things get too frustrating, or I get frustrated with something. I just shut off, and I become extremely quiet and just almost like a prickly cactus. It's just like, you just leave me alone and don't talk to me. I don't want to deal with it. So I don't know if that's the same for you guys. I don't know if you've experienced things like that, where you just sometimes, just depending on the situation, can just totally have a mood change.
Yes, totally. Like sometimes I'll just get really uncomfortable. So if there's like lots of tension going on, or I feel like really overwhelmed, I just kind of want to be in my own space, disconnect, which is not always the best way to respond, but it's definitely a habit.
Yeah, it is. And those habits can be really hard to break sometimes.
Yeah.
When it's, when you feel that's who you are, and you've identified as that's who I am, as this person that just shuts off, closes off. And to break those habits can be difficult.
Yes.
So our distorted identity starts to sabotage our success. Kind of touched on that a little bit. Our distorted identity creates destructive habits. Our destructive habits reinforce the distorted identity. It's just like this big cycle, right? That, Paul talked about, I want to be better, but I choose not to be. I know I should be better, but I don't. And it's just this constant movement of, I have a bad habit because I think I'm bad, so then I continue that habit because I think I'm bad. And it's just that back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think that can really, again, distort how we actually interact, how we even see ourselves, right?
Definitely.
So I think Craig, again, if you haven't watched it yet, please do. It's an excellent message. Craig really dives much deeper into it. Can certainly unpack it a lot better than we can. So I definitely recommend you guys have a watch and certainly dive into this with your own life group. So our scripture today is from Ephesians 4, verses 21 to 24. Since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from him, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupt by lust and deception. Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. And yeah, it's one of those things where we have to break free of that old life, that old lifestyle, those old life choices, but really have to embrace what God has given us that new life, has given us that new attitude, that new direction. And we need to embrace that and hold on to that, because he's the one, of course, that's going to bring us through those difficult moments.
So good.
It is. It's excellent. And that thought, it's one of those things that I keep, I sometimes forget that God has taken that old life away from me. It's gone, and I need to focus on the new. And yet, those habits seem to come up every now and then, where you get into those just bad, maybe not destructive, but just not positive habits, things that maybe aren't as helpful or as good. Maybe you're doing something good, but you could be doing something great, but that habit's kind of keeping you stuck there. I think can be a difficult point for all of us, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we're going to dive into the questions today. Of course, you guys can find these on Life Church in their Talk It Over section, which you can do with your own life group. Same questions we do here each and every week. Our first one here is, what do you want to be when you were growing up? What was that? What did you want to be?
Yeah, I love this question. And actually, I was thinking about it this past week as I introduced myself to this new team that I'm working with at work. And so growing up, honestly, I always wanted to do something with art.
Okay.
So I loved to draw, to design, not as much painting per se, but just lots of different art methods and designing. And so as I got into kind of like the end of elementary school, entering high school, I really wanted to be a fashion designer.
Interesting. Okay.
So really love and appreciate like style, fashion design. Started like reading through like magazines. Honestly, I even went to, I was looking at an art school for high school.
Okay.
To see if they had a fashion designing program. They didn't, so I ended up just going to a regular high school, which actually worked out in the end. But yeah, I was given a fashion designing kit where I could draw my own like designs of accessories, clothes. Sometimes I would just add little pieces to my own clothing as I learned how to sew.
Okay.
And just kind of make it my own. So yeah, I honestly thought that's kind of where I was headed. And God has taken me on a whole other different trail. I still enjoy style and fashion. It's just not my career.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that you have like use that as more of like a creative outlet now to maybe relax, decompress, something to take your mind off of things? Is that kind of what it's become now, is more of an outlet, or is it still something you just really just enjoy doing just because?
That's a great question. I mean, I like to shop.
Okay.
And my husband could testify to that. I love to buy new clothing.
Okay.
So it's definitely something that's fun and enjoyable for me. In terms of like the designing or art piece of that, like I do design my own handmade greeting cards. So that's kind of my creative outlet. It's still designing, right? It's just not like clothing.
Yeah.
So I kind of phased out of the sewing part of my life. I still know how to sew, just basic techniques. But yeah, I think art will always be important to me.
Okay.
Just a way to relax, and just express myself too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on.
How about for you?
Oh, well, if we go back a ways, little kids as we were, I always think, I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to be a fireman, or I'm going to be a policeman. Of course, I had those things for many years, and again, leaving elementary school for high school, I kind of got this whole dead set idea I was going to be a marine biologist. That's what I was going to do.
Cool.
And I loved aquatic life, fish, had multiple fish tanks, variety of different fish, just absolutely loved just all about it. And then, it became something quite drastic. I did a lot of research, a lot of things like that. Again, similar to that, where you're diving into it like all in, right? And then start realizing some of the courses I need and stuff that I need to do, and it just didn't play, to my strong side of me. It just didn't play to that, into the more intellectual book side of things. That just isn't me. I'm not much of that. That's just not my thing. So things had to change, but it's always been a dream, and I've always enjoyed fish, and now instead I fish them and eat them. So
that's a different way of studying them.
Yeah, different way of studying them. Yeah, so it shifted a little bit, but it's still of course love fish. I have fish tanks. I still have all that stuff, and I do still enjoy it. Just a different idea. But sometimes, those things can change, and the directions can change with what we what we think we should be doing to what we actually need to be doing. And so yeah, no, it was good. It was a good experience. Learned a lot of information, which of course I carry today, which is always useful.
So would you ever like swim with sharks or dolphins, like any aquatic animal?
Actually, yes, I did swim with dolphins. I've done that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was fun, and they are as rubbery as you think they are. They feel like rubber. It's very interesting, but super intelligent, and yeah, just very interesting. Just very interesting. Had a great opportunity to do that, and did that, and yeah, it was good. It was good. I did a little bit of scuba diving, not much, but again, I think I'd take that up a little bit more if I could go to a place that was warm, not almost freezing water. So if I was down maybe in the south, I would probably take that up as a bit of a hobby. But yeah, it's a little cold here to do that. I think
goodness,
so.
It would be miserable.
So yeah, so I don't know what that is for you guys. Please let us know in the comments. What did you guys want to be when you grew up? Maybe it's something very specific. Maybe you picked that career and that's what you're in now. Maybe that was your focus, or maybe you're still trying to find it. Maybe you haven't found what that is yet, but still working on it. And sometimes that's just the way it is. You got to try a few things to find the right fit, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So what was an impactful part of the message for you, Michaela? What was something that you really stood out to you this week?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Craig's whole emphasis on like who before do. So as I was listening to the message, I wrote down all these like negative things that I say about myself and how those negative things influence like those like bad habits, right? Those unhealthy habits. And then I started to turn those around and start saying like the opposite. So if I said like, I'm not a good communicator, like I am an effective communicator, or if I say like I'm not talented or equipped, like God equips me to do what he's called me to do.
Yep.
And so trying to rewire those negative thoughts always stands out to me with other like the winning the war in your mind message, like all these kind of it's all related to each other, right? Of just like the ways that we think. I've started reading a book called The Soundtracks by John Acuff, and just learning about how what we tell ourselves, like the overthinking, does really influence what we do and how we live.
Yep.
And so if I'm telling myself, I'm not going to do well, then you're already putting yourself in a position, per se, not to do as well as maybe if you said, hey, I can do this. I have the skills or I have the experience. And then stepping into that with more confidence. And I always would worry like, if I had that kind of mindset, more positive, more confident, then I'd be more like prideful and arrogant. And I don't want to get to that point. And I know that's definitely a possibility, and also God doesn't, God has saved us and he loves us and he cares for us. And so if I'm just constantly belittling the things that he's done in my life and who he's made me to be, like, I'm not glorifying him for what he's done. And so I think just shifting it of, yes, I can do this, I am equipped, I'm confident, I am saved, but it's not because of me. It's because of God. And just constantly shifting it to him removes that pride element, right? And just the humility of, I can do this because of God in me.
Yeah, that just kind of brought back a thought from last week that we discussed about, we talk about, it's God than me. And we kind of related a little bit to that, where it's like, God gives me a direction and then I just run with it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see it till the end. I'm going to make sure it gets finished. When really we're leaving God out of that, where he could be bringing in blessings or using you to be a blessing when you're just focused on getting what's done. So that just re-emphasized that for me from just last week about we need to be bringing God into it. God's told us, given us the direction, given us this, but we can't do it by ourselves. We need him to be there with us, guiding us, helping us, and keeping us on the path that we need to be on with him.
Exactly. Yeah.
For me, there's a couple things that really kind of stood out. If you want to change what you do, you got to change what you think of you. And I think a lot of us get a very negative perspective on ourselves. I think we tend to be overcritical of who we are. I think that can really, again, lead to the negative thoughts about, I'm already failed before I've started because I'm not this or I'm not that. And I think that can really, it really affects how we see ourselves, how we interact with each other, how we get through day-to-day tasks and things with work, with family, and it can be super hard. It can be super hard. Your distorted identity starts to sabotage your success. And again, we can be, we can have these great things that are in front of us that we have an opportunity to be a part of, but those distorted thoughts can really sidetrack us or sideline us from being involved in something that's God's really got for us because we don't think we can be.
Yeah.
And for me, that was what stood out, I would say, the most, is those distorted identity. Your distorted identity starts to sabotage your success. And that negative self-talk, the negative thoughts. And again, the people around us influence us as well, right? And so if you've got people saying you're not this, you're not that, you can't do this, you're not a good parent, that can be extremely detrimental.
Yeah.
We had an experience with that, unfortunately, where somebody come and talk to us and said that we weren't being the parents we needed to be because we weren't staying with our son while he was in the hospital, and that certainly made it hard. It brought my wife to tears, and it was hard to hear that somebody would think that of us when we're doing everything we can and we're at the verge of being burned out,
right.
And yet being told we're still not doing enough. It makes it really difficult, and it really can change your mindset to, I'm not doing enough, I need to do more. Why am I not good enough? Why am I not? And it's hard. It's hard, and having to hear that is super difficult. And I'm sure I'm not the only parent that's heard that. But it's hard. It's hard. And those people can really affect the direction and your thoughts of yourself. And we need to remember, of course, to focus on God and having what He's called us to do, what He has for us, and relying on Him and not the thoughts of the people around us, especially the negative thoughts. Those are extremely damaging and can really sabotage us and the work we're trying to do for God by not changing those thought patterns, those habits.
Yeah, because that kind of comment, like, it just reinforces, like, it's kind of on you. You're responsible for just constantly being, with your son, like, 24/7. And of course, he's your responsibility. But the whole idea of, like, it takes a village to raise a child, and just having, like, your church family around you, where it's not like you guys are always in the room with him, where sometimes it's someone at church will come and, like, just you be able to support you guys because you're human too.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately.
Exactly. And you do. It's all about supporting the people around you, and the close people you have around need to be people who encourage you, not tear you down. And that's a big part of doing life together, again, with life groups. They're there to support and help you through those difficult moments. They're the positive people that are always around you, trying to help you to be better. And I think that's a big part of just life in general. We just need to have those people around us that can help bring some wisdom, some guidance in those areas that are difficult and hard, and just helping us to be just all we can be that God has for us, right?
Well, it's interesting, like, as you talk about, what other people say and how it can influence what we think of ourselves. Sometimes I go the other way, where if people are giving me, like, compliments and, like, positive affirmations, sometimes I'm like, okay, you're just being nice to me. Like, you don't actually mean it.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know why, like, I believe this lie that even in terms of, like, grades at school or just, like, the positive affirmation I've received, I just think, oh my gosh, you're just being nice, or you feel obligated. Like, I'm not actually that talented.
Okay.
I don't actually deserve those grades, and I don't know why or what has caused me to believe that lie. But I don't know. Like, it's really hard to get out of that, of believing, like, you say you love me, that means you actually do. And you don't have to doubt that.
Yes. Yes. And accepting what they're saying at what the value of it is, what they're actually saying. They're saying it because they mean it. Mm-hmm. But taking it as, like, it's not sincere and they're saying it. They're just saying it just so I don't get upset.
Exactly. Yeah, saying what I want to hear. I don't know. Yeah, I've really struggled with that and continue to, honestly. I think, well, also, one of my love languages, top, would be, like, words of affirmation. So I regularly need to hear that. But for close people in my life, that's exhausting to constantly say, hey, like, of course, it's great to, remind each other, I love you, I care for you. but just like not to believe that within myself sometimes without hearing that other person say it, it's challenging.
Yeah, it certainly can be. Yeah, I hear you on that. That does make sense. And yeah, I think you can get into that habit of, no, I can't be that good, or I can't be that loved. It's too much. I'm not that perfect, right?
Right.
That makes sense. I see that. That does make sense. That does. I like that. I guess I never looked at it that way, of not being enough, or not wanting to be enough for those affirmations.
Yeah.
But you feel that they're not true. Interesting.
Well, I wonder if it goes back to what you said about perfection, right? So if we have that's my tendency for being a perfectionist. And so if I don't see it in myself of being worthy of that love, that praise, and it's like, well, no, like whatever you're saying is obviously not true. And so kind of going back to what Craig said about when you think about like who you are as a person, it can also influence how you take what people say to you.
Yep.
And it's like, oh yeah, I know that that's right. So yeah, I'll take that in. And even like truth, right? Like that I am forgiven, I am so loved by God that nothing can separate me from Christ's love. That I have still a very hard time to accept and grasp.
It is, yeah, it certainly is. And even that, we've been saved, we've been forgiven, we're walking with God, and yet sometimes you still feel like you're even still enough to deserve that, right? Yeah. To deserve that grace, that forgiveness, because I'm so bad. And yet, I don't think we're as bad as we think that we are. I think we tend to exaggerate sometimes about, we're not enough, we're not worthy of that, we don't deserve that because I'm not that good, or I'm not that perfect, or I'm not, right? I think we sometimes extend it and then make it seem that we're just these horrible people, but I think we blow it out of proportion. I think a lot of us, it's just like, we know we are, and yet we still feel we're not.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle.
It is.
And again, it's that renewing of our mind and having God with us all the time, renewing our mind and telling us, no, you are enough. You are with me. I give you the strength you need, the direction you need to go, helping you carry the load as you move forward. And we need to constantly remind ourselves of that we are, we are enough. We bring enough. We have things that God's given us, talents, abilities that we can bring to the table. Matched with a few other people, we can accomplish great things.
Yeah.
But we need to be reminded of that no, we can do that. We are part of something bigger than just us.
Exactly.
And when a group of us come together, we can accomplish great things. And we just have to be okay with that and just accept, no, this is what it is. This is what God's got for me. And it's good. And that's okay.
Yeah, and even if we don't feel like we're enough, like I think about, my interview that I had before the role that I have now, which was a dream role, honestly, that I wanted to step into. And having my interview a couple days before our wedding, extremely stressed, very scattered, not thinking straight, and not feeling like I could give my best. And so praying over that interview, saying, God, if this happens, it's going to be you. And so realizing that even though like my best wasn't, as best as I had before the wedding or, months before that, I still had something. And God can use even just a little bit that we have, even if it's just showing up on a Sunday. It's like I have zero energy, I don't want to be here, but I showed up. And God can use that too. And so seeing that God, He will fill in those gaps and He will equip us, no matter what we can bring, but just bringing what we can.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to read Proverbs 23, verse 7. So, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. How have you seen your thoughts or feelings influence your choices and actions? And we kind of touched on this a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of what this is all about. Our thoughts, our feelings really impact and guide us in a direction that's maybe not healthy. Because we can start feeling a certain way and it's like, oh, I need to go do this. But really, it's a feeling. It's not what God's calling you to do. You're just feeling you should. But really, it's not what you should be doing, right? And they can certainly influence thoughts and directions. It's a big one. For me, it was always thinking I always needed. Years ago, it was I needed to have the newest of everything. So my friends got something new, I got the next model out. They got a new car, I got a newer one. They got this, I got that. It was always I wanted to be at the forefront of stuff. So whatever it was, I wanted to have the top best it could be, and really bought into the consumerism that, of course, is around us all the time about buy. And I found myself in a place where I was trying to fill a gap with stuff that really just didn't fill the gap. It plugged the hole for a short period of time, but we'd spring a leak, and I would now feel empty again. And so I have to go find something else to plug that hole. Until I found God. God is what really changed that for me, and changing how I think about what's around me, what's important. I'm certainly not perfect at it by any means. I certainly still like to have nice new things. That's not, that's not to say I've given that all up completely, but God's changed my thoughts on it. It's not like a necessity, I need it now. It's I'll get it when I need it. Like when the time comes, I'll have what I need. And God's always been very faithful in that to me, with providing me with what I need when I need it. It's not something that I have to go out and do. I just wait for Him, and it's been good. It's been good. It's been a good change, a heart change. And what's more important? Is it the stuff, or is it following God? And it's that change of, no, the God's way more important than the stuff. God's going to fill me up. He's going to renew me. That stuff is only temporary, and it'll be gone once I'm gone. It's right. It doesn't last forever.
Yeah, that's tricky. I'm with you too in terms of liking new stuff. As I said, I love shopping. And I think, God blesses us with finances and resources and possessions, and knowing that those things in themselves are not bad, but how we hold on to them, how we view them, if that's the God in our lives, the idol in our lives, and that's where it can be a problem. But knowing that God cares about the things that we want and desire, but if it comes to the point of comparing what do I have versus that person, this is all about a contest of I have more than you, then of course it affects your heart and your mindset. So yeah, I get that. I think in terms of one thought that I have that has influenced my actions would be just in terms of being healthy, working out. So I do struggle with asthma, and I used to think that I couldn't run. Because I have asthma, and I would have asthma attacks before, hated it. For anyone that's had those kinds of attacks, you don't want to have those again.
I can believe it. And
so my husband was actually the one that was like, no, I think you can do it. And you have to train and build yourself up to, getting to where you want to be, but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And so I've been able to run on the treadmill over the past month. At some point I was close to fainting. And so that had discouraged me, but constantly reminding myself, okay, that's okay. That was a setback, but keep showing up, keep going. Even if it's a little less than I had ran, that time. Just keep trying. So I am able to run even though I have asthma, and hope to maybe run a 5K this year. That's kind of my goal. So seeing how God is showing up there to give me the strength. Yeah,
that's excellent, because as we continue to train in that negative thought that you had of, because I have this, that excludes me from all of these other wonderful things, right, that you could be doing, right? And again, having that, having a husband that's encouraging, makes a big difference, right? And saying, no, you can do this, but maybe just start out small. You got to work up, don't run the marathon. I'm going to run the marathon the first time I jump on there. No, it's okay, let's walk half a K, and we'll pick up the pace for half a K. We'll do a K, and slowly working and building up to it. I certainly can attest to that. It's big in slow buildups. It's not let's go right to the end. You've got to go slow.
It's about the journey, not just the result.
It is about the journey. And I same thing with my martial arts. I'm going into a club where I am the oldest guy at the classes training. It's discouraging, because I'm beside some of these guys and girls that are training Olympic level, that will compete at the Olympics, will be national champions, very high level. And I'm this old dude. I got the dad bod. I got the dad bod. I am not near in shape as these guys are. And yet I find myself being no, I'm here for me. I'm not here for them. I'm not here to compete against them. We're on different levels, but I'm going to come in and give my 100%. I'm going to do what I can to the best I can, as hard as I can. And that's what I ask of myself. And I find myself being somewhat competitive in that atmosphere. That I'm not maybe the slowest person out there. I'm actually not bad. So those little glimmers of, hey, no, I can do this. I can be, working towards something more, even though it is discouraging when you look big picture. Looking at smaller increments of what I'm going to bring and how I'm going to do it changes everything you're going to do about it. Because it's easy to live in fear of, I'm going to have asthma attacks every time I run. That's just what's going to happen, right? But change that mindset to, I'm going to start out small and I'm going to work at it little by little, and not think that I'm going to have this attack every time I jump on the treadmill. Right? And so, I think that's a big part of it again. But it all comes back to that mindset. Those distorted ideas of ourselves can really destroy our habits and our direction. And Craig, again, he touched on that really, really well this week. So if you hadn't had a chance, please go watch that message. You can catch it on our YouTube channel at LifeNorth.Church. And he, of course, dives into this much, much deeper than we can, and really expands on it really, really well. We, of course, have run out of time again today. Time just flies when we are having great conversation. So if you guys want to dive deeper into these questions, please join a life group, start a life group, and really, grab a couple friends and really dive into this, really dig in. Because I find in my life group, I get so much more out of each message every time we discuss them, just because the perspectives are different. And it just brings a whole different atmosphere when you're all talking about the same thing, and can really just open up and be open and vulnerable in that place, and not have to worry about any judgment about, thoughts or anything that's going on.
Totally. So, it's a place of encouragement, that's for sure.
It is. And so we, of course, want to thank you guys for joining us. We, of course, would love to have you back again. We want to thank our tech team behind us, of course, making this all happen and making it available for you guys to come check out every week. So with that, of course, we want to remember, whoever finds God finds life.